Very warm welcome to the 178th Security Thought Leadership webinar. And the idea of thought leadership is that we critique today what is going on in the security world in order we may get a better type of security tomorrow. Criticize is not the same as critique. Critical has got a negative connotation. Critique is a constructive way of pulling apart issues to learn from them. And the topic today is one that I know is at the forefront of many people's mind. Managing security suppliers. What are the key factors to optimizing performance? We're hearing about austerity around the world. We're hearing about the problems with recruitment. We're hearing about the problems with retention. We're hearing about the advances made by technology. Where does all this leave us? Well, we've got three experts as usual. In a minute, I'm going to invite each of them to introduce themselves. And once they've done that, I'll invite them each to make an opening statement. It's 3 minutes when they get to say whatever they want about this topic. And then we'll come to you, the audience, and invite you to ask questions. Please, can you use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen? Get your questions in early, and I'll endeavour to incorporate them in the discussion that follows. Without further ado, then, let's go and meet our first guest from London. Oliver, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Oliver Curran. I'm an in-house security manager at University College London. I started my security career as a contract security officer 27 years ago. I'm also the current vice chairman of AUXO, which is the Association of University Chief Security Officers, board member of the UK Security Commonwealth, and very proud co-chair of the Security Commonwealth's EDI Special Interest Group. So it's a pleasure to be able to speak to you today.
Oliver, thank you very much indeed. And we go from London to France, and we're going to meet Alexandre. I should say the idea for this webinar came up from a conversation between Alexandre and I at the French Hospice in Paris in November. Alexandre, we come a long way. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm indeed the French quota of the panel. I'm CPP, former intelligence officer, security professional for 20 years, and now I'm security, fire safety, and cybersecurity officer for a company that owns more than 250 office buildings and a few other retail parks in Paris and in greater Paris area.
Thank you very much indeed, Alexandre. And all the way from France over to Canada. Michael, please introduce yourself.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, wherever you're tuning in from. I am a forensic security and risk management consultant, focusing on critical infrastructure, property management, and high net worth individuals. I feel privileged to be on this panel today to discuss this, a very dear topic to myself in the challenges I see with clients and suppliers on a day-to-day basis. So thank you, Martin.
Michael, thank you very much indeed. Well, okay, without further ado then, we're going to go back to our first panelist, Oliver, and ask Oliver for your opening statement, please, Oliver.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. So, I'm coming at this from a security staff and provider point of view, but I hope what I'm going to say is going to be relevant to all client-supplier relationships. As I said, I've been in the industry for 27 years. The first 12 years, I was actually working for suppliers as a contract manager. And the last 15 years, as I said, I've been an in-house security manager. So again, working in university, you pick up a lot of habits. So I have carried out some research for this webinar by speaking to a lot of my peers in the industry. So I'll start by saying that it's probably relatively easy to answer the question, what are the key factors to optimize performance? And it's a bit more challenging to answer why it goes wrong. But I'm going to try and give both a go. So to me, optimizing performance comes in two stages, just simply before the start of a contract term and during. Beforehand, probably most obvious, it's imperative to have clear goals, objectives. You need to align interests so you understand each other's strengths, side accountability, liability. And I would say, suppliers, don't oversell yourself. A lot of us have seen examples of where responsibility for winning contracts, the people who do that aren't necessarily the same people who will be managing them. And I think for both clients and suppliers, we can both benefit from having clear service level agreements. Clearly, clients benefit from having assurance that a supplier has committed to meeting their needs and expectations, while a supplier can use the SLAs as a way to manage client expectations, ensure service levels are constantly met. And during the contract term, there's always the need for clear communication. You know, misunderstandings to me is the key to poor performance. There needs to be constant performance reviews to ensure continuous improvement. But always remember, you know, just do what the contract says. So in a way, it can be that simple, but it's not. So why does it go wrong? So I'll start with the obvious. You know, we're all humans. We're all human beings. We're all different. We've got, so therefore relationships will be different. Some suppliers often focus on what they can most easily provide and not necessarily what the client most needs. And clients we often hear the words honesty, transparency, integrity, trust. When I worked for suppliers, if something went wrong, I'd often be told, don't tell the client. But I'd say what happened, I'd say what went wrong, I'd say what I've done to make sure it doesn't happen again. That builds the trust, and that is key. Which just brings me on to sort of one of the last things I will speak about at this stage is about relationships. Good relationships, are they the cure or are they the disease? I used to say business relationships are a lot like personal relationships, whether short-term or long-term. You know, you obviously want to get on, it's exciting at the start, you make lots of promises to each other, you want to have mutual trust and mutual respect, you want to communicate well. If problems arise, you know, you want to resolve quickly, you know, the never go to sleep angry line, you know, when one messes up, you know, you don't want to sort of ignore them, give them the cold shoulder, you know, you want to sort it out, you know, you want to find a mutual solution. But I think commitment is clearly very important, you know, each other's, because the industry, you know, in this industry, you know, long-term relationships are quite rare, you know, so we're probably not going to grow all together. And you say, don't hate me when the relationship does end and I'll leave you for one of your best friends. Anyway, but, you know, we may end up back together one day. But finally, sometimes in a relationship, the importance isn't focused on two individuals. There's others involved. So in personal relationship, there might be children involved. In the security sector, it's the people we are trying to protect. The relationship has to work for their sake. As clients, we are protecting large communities from dangers and threats. To do that, we need help. We need supplier expertise. We need their innovations. We owe it to the people we are protecting, and we owe it to them to ensure we partner with the best. That's why performance management is key for the success and the safety of all. Thank you, Martin.
Oliver, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Just a reminder to the audience, please do get your questions in using the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll endeavour to include it. Let's go to our second panelist then. Alexandre, please can we have your opening statement, Alexandre?
Now I work for the final clients, but I have an experience as a security entrepreneur. So I've been on the other side also for a while. Some of my key factors will meet what Olivier said just previously. I would state 5 key factors to optimizing performance. First one is understanding the global environment in which your supplier evolves. What is the regulation? What are the specifications related to the size of your provider? Will you be looking for a big size player or a small size player? How is the employment market? Is it easy to find some security staff or not? What kind of people are providing those positions? Know about the economy trends. How is the business for those guys? What specific, in French, we are very good with taxation. And you need to know what kind of specific tax goes on those companies. You need also to take into account those abnormal facts that can just bring constraints to the business. For example, in Paris, we will have the Olympic Games in 2024. We all know that there will not be enough security guards to meet all the needs. So we need to secure our staff now so they don't run to the Olympic Games for a few months. So this is my first point, understanding the global environment. Second point is be clear with your expectation. Don't let your provider guess what is important for you. Just tell him it's the best way that you can get what you expect. Third point is human security is about human beings. Treat the staff that is sent to your place as much as possible as if they were part of the team. I know there's some difference that they are not staff of your company, and so there's some limit to what you can offer and how you consider them. In France, we have some regulation about management of the staff, but you need to make them feel they are part of the team of the site and they are part of the solution. First point is buy what you can afford. If you can't afford it, then our job is to either innovate or make our decision maker understand the risk that we take. If you want to buy something you can't afford, you're going to buy low-cost solution, and you probably will be not satisfied with what you get at the end. And my last key factor is the contract must be reasonably profitable for your supplier. It's a business, he needs to make money. If he doesn't make money, he's going to cut on investment, on middle management, and then at the end, you will not, the contract will not last long and you will not be satisfied. So we need to accept that they are making a little bit of money on your contract. That's how they will be motivated to keep your contract and make a good job.
Alessandro, thank you very much indeed. 5 good points. Particularly enjoyed that last one. I'm sure we'll be coming back to that. Don't forget, audience, if you'd like to ask a question, please get your question using the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. And after we've heard from Michael, we'll open it up to the audience. So, Michael, from France to Canada, please welcome your opening statement.
Thanks, Martin. There's a lot of things that throwing through my mind when I started reading the topic for today. I completely agree with Oliver and I completely agree with Alexandra. But one word came to mind when I read all of this about the topic for today was education. Both sides of the table need to be educated. The end user, the purchaser, the buyer, they need to be educated in what they want, what they need, and who they're buying it from. Understand the organizations that they're buying it from, understand the services they're looking for. And then on the other side of the table, the suppliers need to understand, they need to understand their own capability, their own capacity, need to understand the marketplace that they're going into, whether it's a university like Oliver's in, or it's a private organization like Alexandra. You need to understand from a supplier standpoint, what is that environment? Not every single environment that they're supplying to is going to be the same. And understanding your marketplace is key. And it might be slightly self-serving of me to say, from a consulting side, I often have that conversation with clients or potential clients and say, why don't you bring in a consultant to be that middle person, if you will, that can have that discussion between the supplier and you. I'm going to learn about your business. I'm going to know about the marketplace that's out there with regards to suppliers. I've been in it. I've managed guard companies, but on the front line. I've been from what I call from the front line to the bottom line. I've seen the different things that happen in the industry, and I'm involved with the various suppliers and the various end users. So, from that perspective, it's all about education. Oliver brings up a good point about communications and transparency. That is just ultimately key. Because if we can't communicate what we need, what we want, we're not going to have that great relationship. And this is where we have this constant cycle of either, having to find new technology or having to find new suppliers or having to find new frontline staff because we're just not communicating and we're not educating.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, listen, fantastic opening statements, really good scene setter for us. I'm going to come to you first, Oliver, and Roger Warwick, who, by the way, was the first ever panelist on the very first webinar, has raised a comment about the role of procurement. And let me take his comment, Oliver, and put it to you. The real problem here is procurement are too powerful, they don't get security, and they undercut quality practice. I'll ask each of you this. Simple as this, procurement, 90% of the problem. Oliver?
I think it's possible. We have at UCL a very good procurement team. We've got a very good relationship with our procurement team, and we're very lucky that they do understand the risks and the threats that we're trying to tackle on a daily basis. But I do agree. I have seen and I have heard of bad practices where you know, people are just, they want cheapest, you know, it wants cheap. And as we said, that's not going to give you the service you want. So I do think that from a security management point of view, for a client point of view, I think it's your duty in a way, you know, you have to go and have those conversations with procurement. You know, if you're going to let them win, there's pointless having a security manager. So I think it's very key to have a good relationship with them. I said, we're very lucky here, but I can absolutely agree with why he said that.
Yeah, okay, Alexandre, transfer this to a French context. Procurement's the problem?
I educate my procurement colleagues. It's an ongoing job to make them understand that security providers is not just a question of cost. There's quality of service, and the lower the cost doesn't mean the quality will be there. So I try to every day, not every day, but by good relationship, tell them about the quality of the job, tell them about what happens on my sites, and make them understand that we get what we pay for.
But the thing is though, Alexandre, is do you think that procurement professionals generally are expert enough in being able to understand something they buy once every 3 or 5 years? I mean, it's reasonable to assume that unless one takes on the role you've said, it's highly likely they will be ignorant, or at least not be so well informed about the practice of security.
They are not well informed. They usually in France, the people who buy for human security are the one who buy also cleaning services. They buy all those services related on where there's a lot of human involved, and they tend to buy it the same way whatever the type of company. And that's where we need to have good relationship, so they trust what the expert says as the final quality of service that is expected. They understand figures, they understand money. So I try to educate them, show them the cost of security breach, and show them that paying a little bit more for security is most of the time less expensive than paying for the security breach consequences.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Michael, I'm going to come to you because I think it's a really important one, this, Michael. How much is it realistic to put the blame here on this procurement professional? This feeling that they're just too powerful and they get in the way of good practice.
Well, you know, is it really the individual or is it really the organization? It's the culture of the organization, right? The organization was built that way. It's not the actual individual. You know, let's sort of flip the coin a little bit. And when I'm, you know, working with emergency management and we're doing an emergency management exercise and we're going through a tabletop exercise as an example, is it the individual that made the mistake, or is it the process or the procedure, the information that we provided that individual that was the mistake? Because they were just following the instructions. So they're just following the culture of their organization or the business. Now, it's not to say that perhaps there are the odd individual that might take that authority of procurement a little too far. Sure, that happens in all aspects of business out there. But I think it boils down to a cultural thing, you know, within the organization that might be the problem. And, you know, when you use people like Oliver, Alexandra, and communicating and educating other partners within the business, that's where it moves forward. But when not a lot of organizations have an Oliver, don't have an Alexandra to lean on. And again, that's when they should be either, you know, networking or communicating within their own, you know, procurement professional organizations. Maybe they're reaching out to the Olivers of the world. Maybe they're reaching out to the Michaels of the world to say, okay, I need to buy this service. What am I looking for? What do I need to understand? Educate me. Some do, some don't. And I think the ones that don't, that's where they suffer.
And I guess the thing is this, Michael, I mean, Jay Jordan has said that we've got to build up a relationship with procurement. Now, in a way, that sounds obvious, right? It sounds obvious. Why is it not obvious, or what is the problem, do you think? Because in a way, it just sounds textbook. You know, you've got a buying professional, you've got a security professional, get together. It's not how it's perceived. And so I just wonder what the problem is.
I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I don't have the time. My calendar's full. And, you know, when I deal with my clients and other professionals, it's like, I need 10 minutes. I want to have a 10-minute conversation. I want to go for a quick coffee. I want to just sit down. You tell me what your day is like. I'll tell you what my day is like. Let's figure out how we can solve things together. It's just as simple as that. And those 10 minutes then grow, right? We then, Oliver becomes that asset to that procurement professional. Alexander becomes that asset to an HR professional, because we're taking the 10 minutes just to talk. You know, I hear it all the time. Listen, I want to have a 15-minute meeting with you. I don't have 15 minutes. But when they do have the 15 minutes, that 15-minute meeting just turned into 30, just turned into 45, because now we've realized the value of that meeting. And then they become rescheduled and rescheduled, and it becomes cyclical. And that's how we learn, and that's how we move this forward, because we need to be assets to each other, not just another cog in that wheel and remaining in silos.
Oliver, let me pick up on something that Simon Chan has said in a question he's got. And don't forget, if you've got a question, please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, Oliver. And that is the ability of suppliers. Because once again, your point is about the process that we need to go to in your opening statement. There's nothing particularly complicated or there. And yet, I think it's fair to say your own experience has been that often people haven't responded to what you want. Sometimes they've actually offered what they think they can do. And when you've got that happening on quite a big contract, which is what you're dealing with, it doesn't bode well for perceptions of the security sector generally.
Yeah, and again, I think this, you know, one of the issues, as you say, we have, I mean, we're a very large contract, probably 250 plus security officers. And again, I think this is where when I go through tender processes and I talk to potential future suppliers, I explain to them the risks and the threats around university security. Some people think university security is just drunk students, traffic cones, etc. You know, it's a vast range, and I often say to them, yeah, you need to understand it. So during a process, I always say, you need to prove to me, do you understand the challenges at university security? You know, your company might be good at, you know, supplying security for retail or construction or corporate, etc. But a very a separate area. No, it's still security, but there's still a lot of risks. And I think that's the thing. Some companies do get it, but some companies just think it's just another security contract, so we can do that. That's a lot of the challenges we've had over the years. And I think that's kind of why you want to have that long-term relationship, so that, you know, as you grow, they grow. You know, we want our suppliers to grow with us. You know, we want them to do well. You know, people mentioned earlier on about profits. Absolutely. You know, we want them as a company to expand because it makes them better and it gives us a better service.
I mean, so the word profit isn't a difficult thing in you, because you're a public sector organization. A supplier making a profit isn't problematic in your world.
Not really. I mean, again, it's like any contract, as we've already said. You know, you do want the companies to grow. You know, you know, they're not going to last long with you if you sort of start haggling every penny. I mean, I think there are certain things during the contract management side of it where you make sure that, you know, the money has got to be spent wisely. You know, if money's put aside for that, spend it on that. If it's for that, spend it on that. Don't sort of think, we'll make out it's for that, but we'll keep that, we'll add to the profit. That's the bit I'm not happy with. You know, we have those agreements at the beginning and we'll stick.
Alessandro, do come in, please.
Indeed, all security companies are not good for all types of contracts, and that's where the person as a client needs to understand the environment, to understand which type of company are good for the contract they want to put them on. Working, as Oliver said, in a commercial center is not like working in a hotel. I've been for a few years in hospitality business. When you want a security guard in a 5-star hotel, you don't go to the same company as if you need someone for a 1-star hotel. Not same environment, not same type of problems, not the same expertise.
You see, the thing is, I want to ask you something here, Alexandre, because and I'm going to ask both Michael and Oliver the same question. You in your opening statement made a point, in answer to a question, you made the point about the need to be able to educate the procurement department, and all of you in your own way have made the point about the need to be discerning about what supply you take. So since there's a little bit of hesitation about me blaming the world of procurement, let me instead blame the world of buyers, security experts, who quite simply haven't got the skill sets to properly understand what they need from a supplier, and or aren't able to sell that within the organization. And I don't mean you three on the panel, I mean the broader world of security management. Alexandra, how much would you let me put the blame on that world?
I think that's the problem you can find with any kind of experts. If the expert is just expert in his field, then he's not able to understand what's on the side. We all need to open our minds and find time to do so, to understand accounting issues, to understand legal issues, to understand human resources issues, marketing issues. In my field, for example, a point is how much charge per square meter can you put on the building so that you find tenants. This is an issue that is for my asset manager colleagues, but I need to understand that. So I need how much I can, I understand how much I can spend on the security of the building. So I would say that, of course, if we stay in our security field tight, we don't look up on what goes on the other side, on the other sides of the business, then we are not good enough and we are not assets.
Okay, so Mike, I'm going to come to you on this issue because, I mean, in some ways, you are perhaps a little bit more independent of the process. This security expertise here we're talking about, okay, it's one thing, isn't it, to be able to conduct a risk assessment or be able to answer security questions, but to be able to engage business leaders in their domains on business terms about security is a quite different skill set, and one perhaps that many would say security management haven't grown up with and haven't been a part of their being. There's the problem. They're not business people, they're security people.
You know, for some environments, I'm going to agree with you. Absolutely. But, you know, that I guess not trying to defend the security managers or the security professionals out there, but you have professionals like that in all fields. But yes, security managers, you know, you've seen this change in the last 5-10 years, where I'll pick on Oliver, where the Olivers of the world have grown up in their position, and they're not just a security manager asset, they're also a business management asset to the organization. So you see that change where they're becoming a greater asset to the organization. You know, I want to go back just very briefly to another point in the last question. You know, in my past experience, when I did manage a service provider, a guard company and an alarm company, on the guard company side of things, when it came to procurement, there was a point where we went through an exercise where we fired clients. We fired clients because there was too much management hand-holding, right? There was too much money being spent and we weren't making a profit. So, you know, in that situation, you know, the conversation back with the client, you know, Oliver and I would be sitting across the table and I would show Oliver the numbers and say, now what? This is how much. So are we raising the rates? Are we walking away? What are we doing? And we went through that exercise, and I guess you could say we fired a bunch of clients because there wasn't that appreciation of both sides of that table. They were getting the service. They agreed that they get the service that they asked for, and they were happy with it. But of course, they didn't want to pay more, and they didn't understand why this, you know, the profitability of the organization was their problem.
Yeah. I mean, the question is, I suppose, that faced with that sort of stark figures in front of you, and I just wonder whether part of the problem here is rather than blaming procurement, and it was, of course, an academic question, it was independent to sort of discuss. I wonder, let me come to you, Oliver, whether this point about the skill sets of security, corporate security professionals, the buyers out there, surely, if we want a really, really good security sector, we need to educate the security buyers, because ultimately it's buyers who decide what sort of security we get. And so the sort of security get depends on the ability of the corporate security manager. I mean, to follow Alexandra's point, if they're able to go and argue the case, then all well and good. But seemingly, given the fact there are problems out there, there just isn't the case. Oliver.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think, I don't expect our procurement team to be security experts. That's kind of what we bring to the table. We explain that, because they're obviously off doing other procurement exercises with catering or other sort of services. So again, I wouldn't expect that. But I do agree with the sort of the buyers, or sometimes the inexperienced, and I've even used the term amateurs in the past, because, in my career, when I started as a security officer, and I learned more from bad managers than good managers. I learned a lot by watching people, and I couldn't understand why would they do that. How is that getting the best out of people? And then eventually at some point you realize, well, the pay rates are so bad that this is why it attracts. I see security manager, operational security manager jobs sort of, 25 to 30,000. And, what sort of manager are you going to get? And that manager that you end up with is going to be sitting down with procurement, and procurement probably would be just making all the decisions, because the person probably hasn't got the experience, hasn't got the know-how to sort of bring that along. And as I said in my statement, this is why, we're all here, all managers are here to protect people, protect assets. To do that, you need to have those skill sets. And I do think a lot of it is because, sometimes the advertisements of the jobs are so poor, you're attracting really bad people into the industry.
Alexandra, I want to come to a question that Pedro has raised, Pedro Levine, and that's about engaging not just broad security, but the broader stakeholders within the organization. Theoretically ideal, Alexandra. My question is twofold. One, how important is that? Is it realistic? Are they interested enough? And if so, why don't security always do it?
It's very important to let all the people in the company knows what you're doing on the security side. It's important that the security expert translates what he's doing into added value action into the business, so that everyone understand, being commercial, technical, whatever, how he can benefit from the expertise. It's everyday work. Doesn't work all the time, definitely. And it requires the security experts to be open-minded and to make the first step, to understand what the guy, your colleague, is doing, what he's looking for, what he needs, and we need to bring this some part of the solution.
Okay, I mean, let me come to you, Michael, and I got a question from Keith Nielsen, who's actually picked up on, Michael, something you said, and that's about how we educate the process for engaging people in something as seemingly marginal as protecting the organization. And I don't mean protect is not important, of course. I just mean that when you're in the business of making money, security can seem not that important. And it's that process of, it is important, it does matter, but it's a matter of selling this in business terms, I suppose, rather than security terms. Michael, is that a problem, do you think, out there?
It is a problem in organizations out there, because oftentimes security is looked at as an invoice and not an asset, right? It's a cost center, and what am I getting out of it? Like, we're just throwing money at this, and what are we getting? And it's up to it's up to the Alexandras and the Olivers of the world to go, this is what you're getting. Look at, we've stopped this many incidents, or we've This is how much we're protecting. We're protecting millions of dollars of assets. And this is what these assets are. And this is what we do to protect those assets. And, I bring back an example because, how simple or how easy can this be done? And I brought up the example about, taking somebody for coffee, having 10 minutes. There's an organization that I'm working with where, quite frankly, and of course, we're not going to name names, but they had no idea. There are members of this organization that had no idea that they had a security director.
Ugh.
None, right? Because it was never communicated. It's never been introductions. There was never for lack of better words, a meet and greet, a lunch and learn. So now with an organization that has 1,000+ employees, they're just learning for the first time that the security director has been there for 6 years and has been in the organization, has been doing things in the organization. So, shame on the security director for not being there. Shame on the culture of the organization for not, supporting that kind of camaraderie or get to know you, or here's all your different assets within the organization, or even simply just sharing, because oftentimes, security is an invoice and not an asset, because we don't want to talk about the problems that we might actually be experiencing. Oliver may not, I'll use Oliver as an example. Oliver may not want to tell the world in his university, by the way, we have a theft problem. We've been losing bicycles have been walking off this property like crazy. But I don't want to tell anybody that. I just want to try and solve the problem. And we have to communicate. We have to communicate because we need all those people to be also our security assets, right? And they need to be able to be comfortable to go to the Olivers of the world and discuss their security, because every department's got their own security concerns, right? Every professional out there in the different departments, they've got their own perception of what security is, and they also have their own security concerns. But if Oliver doesn't know them, he can't provide, possible recommendations or sage advice that says, okay, thank you. I didn't know you were experiencing this. Let's try this. Or we have a resource that does this. Again, I go back to my, opening statement. When I read what today's topic was, one word just came to mind, and it was education. It just screamed in my head.
All around by the sounds of it. Let me just very quickly, I want to get a few questions in, not to miss out. Oliver, Lisa Ravenscraft has raised the issue of training. Oliver, to what extent are you able to influence the training that your suppliers do? I mean, do you tell them what you want them to do, and do you pay for it? Or do they come to you and say, this is what we think we need? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a very strong relationship with our training manager, and one of the things so one of our 4 objectives, departmental objectives, one of it is about having fully trained first responders to any unwanted incident, because every day we have unwanted incidents. Do we have first responders? Yes, the core security officers. Are they fully trained? That's the bit. So I actually sat down recently because we've got a new training manager on site, and I went through the top 20 courses that I want all of our officers to go through. So that's something he's working on. I mean, you can't work in a university environment. Well, somebody once said, well, security is just fire and first aid training. And I said, yeah, that was in the 1980s, my friend. Nowadays, a good security officer is like a Swiss Army knife. They should be able to pull out whatever skill they need to at that moment. We get a lot of mental health issues at UCL, especially over night time where there's maybe not that much help around. Of course, we want to be able to help with that. So I think that's the thing that, so training is key, training and development, because not only is it good as a service for the company, it's very good for the officers to sort of, keep them involved, keep them sort of, up to date with what's going on.
Okay, Alexander, I don't know if you answer very comment on that, because I've got a different question for you.
In France, security companies are very shy with coming up with this kind of issues. So it's really needs the clients who has to put the issue on the table and tell them that education is important, and you're ready to take into account this issue and discuss inside the contract. Okay, let me just ask you a very quick question from Tracy Rogers. We're running out of time, so I want to be quick here if I might, Alexandre, because I want to get Michael on as well. Tracy Rogers says, given the competitive nature of contracts at the moment, do you think actually optimizing security is a particular challenge? It's a challenge because that's an issue we have. We are landlords and we have a cost with energy for our tenants. So we need to optimize the global charges. Usually optimization to a point means accepting some risk. So you have to make all parts of the deal understand what are the acceptable risks, and then you can optimize.
Mike, on this point of just about optimization, just to throw you a curve ball, Pat O'Neill just asked the question, should we incentivize a bit more? I mean, has that got on? I mean, he was talking about on the front line, but if I could just turn that into the problem is the structure here. We're not incentivizing performance enough, good performance enough. Michael, very quickly.
Yeah, I can say that, I've seen contracts where, when we reviewed the KPIs and if the organization, if the supplier didn't meet certain standards, certain things that were located or stated in the contracts, the incentive was actually, if you don't do this, you're going to lose $10,000. We're taking $10,000 off the top of the contract. We're taking $20,000 off the next infraction. So, and you have some organizations that, the salesperson, I mean, there's a bonus involved, there's their pay involved, all of that stuff. So, they're a little bit more invested to make sure that the front line is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Should we incentivize it? That's a very double-edged sword, because then I could turn around and say, well, the buyers, you need to maybe rethink about what you're paying for. Maybe you're not paying enough. So to incentivize it, maybe we should be bringing up the standard at what you're paying for, because you want a Cadillac, but you're paying for a Pinto. So let's be realistic about, I'm gonna punish you for not doing something. Well, you're not paying us enough to barely do that now. So again, both sides need to talk about this.
Okay, that was an interesting point, actually. Wish maybe we would have a webinar on incentivization one day. We've only got a minute left. I'm going to ask each of you a question that Tom Reeves has raised on the question. I'm going to put it slightly differently to the way Tom does, but building on his point. Let me put it to each of you, starting with you, Oliver. The real problem here is that all organizations really care about is cybersecurity. And as a consequence, that's where all the interest and the focus is. And physical is second best, and it will always play that part, at least for the time being. Oliver, yes or no? You've got 15 seconds if you wouldn't mind.
No. So physical security will always outrank cyber. Cyber is very important. It's highly risk. We're both doing the same job. We're both trying to stop bad things from happening. But I will never agree that cyber is more important.
Alexandre?
No, not true in my case, because on physical security, I have issues. Things happen. So we know that we cannot completely cut the cost on this.
And Michael, final comment to you. Is it all cyber these days?
No, it's not. It's both. You need both. You can't have a cyber asset without having some physical security to it. And, with technology these days, you can't have physical tools out there without having your cyber side of the house. It's, might as well attach them at the waist, because you need them both.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you so much for that. We've run out of time. We could have gone on. There were more issues. There were more questions being raised, but an excellent discussion. And of course, one we are definitely going to come back to in different guises in the future. So thank you very, very much indeed. So a few final comments from me, if I might, very, very briefly, just to say that up and coming events on the 23rd of February. Next month, we have the UK OSPAs, and in the afternoon, for all thought leaders around the globe, come to the UK. Don't just come to the OSPAs. We have a thought leadership summit in the afternoon, our 5th one. We're in India for the OSPAs on the 24th of March and in Ireland on the 23rd of May. So do put those in your diaries. Just to say that we will be at the security event in April at the NEC in Birmingham. Come and say hello to us. Come and see us there. We're going to be having a booth and taking a point of coming to meet you all. Also to say that we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Business improvement districts, are they examples of security shining or security failing? And 2 weeks after that, whistleblowing. What are the benefits and the dangers for the whistleblowers? So lots more coming up, lots more thought leadership going on. Thank you once again to the panel today. Thank you ever so much to the audience for your questions. I'm sorry we didn't get everything in, but we did our best. I very much look forward to seeing you all on the circuit somewhere or other. And until we meet again, wherever you are in the world, stay safe.